All right, welcome back. Fit to Live Radio, Season 4, Episode 15. We're talking about the obstacles of beginners, because there are quite a few, and if you know them, you know how to get through them, and you can at least recognize that they're coming, that they will come, and that you will get through them. But first, news and events. So, Hometown Heroes volunteer registration is live, if you haven't heard already. Athlete registration is live today. When you listen to this, it's live today. So there's a link on our Instagram, Friction Grand Rapids, for you and your teammates to sign up. Same-sex teams of 3. There's an advanced division and an intermediate division. We'll probably talk more about it as it gets closer to the event, as far as like what the workouts are and the logistics of that, the fun stuff. Murph, we're doing that at May 29th. That is Sunday, a couple days after this comes out, 10 a.m. and noon. And then we have our Rockford fire truck pull. So if you're part of the Friction community or just part of the greater Grand Rapids community, up in Rockford, there's a fire truck pull for charity, right?
Yeah.
The charities that they're working with?
I think it's actually to help support the fire station. But
It's the fire station itself. Hey, it makes sense, right?
Yep. But either way, that is teams of 10. So you get teams of 10 together, raise the minimum amount of money, and then the option to raise more money for that. So that'll be going on there. So they attach a really large rope to the front of a fire engine. You and some buddies pull it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool event. I think you get 2 or 3 tries at it, and maybe cover 10 feet total. Something along those lines.
It was like 20 or 30.
Felt like 20.
Felt like 1,000.
Yeah. But yeah, that is pretty much it for news and events. So obstacles beginners face when starting any class, functional movement, crossing style class. What's the first one on the list, Mike?
Lingo. So in CrossFit or any functional movement, if you follow somewhat of the CrossFit methodology, or really any fitness regimen, there's a lot of lingo that is, I don't want to say made up, but to a degree it's made up. And if you know what it is, great. And if you don't, it can feel really daunting. Like if it's thrusters and box over burpees, or burpee over box, whatever. Like, cool. What are those two things? I know what a box is. That's about it.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of acronyms, right? You'll see ground to overhead, shoulder overhead,
Yeah.
T to B, or whatever it is, HSPUs.
Yeah.
What are HSPUs, right? So it's almost a language in and of itself, but kind of boil it down, these movements have a name, or they need a name, right? You can just say that thing where you put your hips down.
Yeah.
Those are squats, right? So you kind of have this nomenclature. Is that right?
Nomenclature.
Thanks. Naming things.
Nomenclature.
Nomenclature.
Is now.
Yeah. Nomenclature.
Sure.
Nomenclature, right? To designate what this movement is, and then it just gets shortened and abbreviated.
Yeah.
And eventually you start to see benchmarks where it's a designated rep scheme and movements, right? So you see workouts like Fran or Diane. And I think one of the big things that we talked about for this podcast is that language, that movement language, is almost like a language that you would be exposed to if you're learning Spanish, right? Like the best way to learn Spanish is to go to a Spanish community and be forced to do it. Be forced to immerse yourself in it. Like, yeah, you're not going to be able to put a sentence together in that language, but eventually you'll get there, and you'll get there quicker by being in the community versus being on the outside trying to figure it out. Right?
Rosetta Stoning it.
Yeah, right. So this is kind of synonymous with trying to figure out the lingo inside of the gym before you get in the gym.
Yeah.
Right. So the quickest way is just
do it.
Get in the gym, get in there, do it, immerse yourself in it. You're going to be hearing it, saying it, doing it, and that's just going to kind of feed back into learning it a lot quicker than, seeing it what it is on a screen or in a workout, looking it up, trying to figure it out, make sure you have the right video versus having a coach right there to say, like, hey, this is what the movement is, this is what it it means. This is how to do it, and then you go from there.
Yeah. And speaking of language, like the movements are universal. So like if you travel overseas a lot to countries where you don't speak that language and you like drop into a gym, especially a CrossFit gym, like thrusters and squats and box over burpees, like those are pretty universal. So you can walk into a CrossFit gym in a different language and still have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
You can literally speak the same language in another country where
Yeah.
you don't speak the spoken language, right? This
Yeah.
is a
Physical language.
physical language, right?
Yeah.
Movement language.
Next would be this one's a little more personal, but like the people in class, like everybody's new, especially day one, and you're trying to create connections as quickly as you can to give you some sort of emotional tie or social tie to that gym or to that area, and that's one of the biggest things that we focus on is getting some sort of relationship with somebody and a staff member, whether that be through like some sort of one-on-one or going right into group. We prefer going into one-on-one because we can just establish that relationship and create a social and emotional tie. That way it's not just like, hey, welcome, all right, there's everybody in class, have fun, go make friends. Like, no, like I want to be your friend first. I want to make sure you're going to come back, and then we can make friends. We can make more friends.
This is kind of like going to a new school, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to this new school. I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to this workout class. I don't know anybody. There are going to be people there that are strangers, right? And so that's kind of where the coach comes in, and that's why when we have people start at our gym, if they're a beginner, we always encourage them to do an intro session, which is really just a sit down with the coach. The coach is going to ask you, hey, where are you from? What experiences have you had? What do you know about us? Right? And then we can kind of help fill in the gaps and make sure they have a clear understanding and get them rolling into a workout where they're going to be comfortable with the coach that is leading them through it, or just getting you to the right coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is a tough part. I think, though, that if we say the beginner has a hard time with that, that's really what allows people to stick with it.
Yeah.
Right? Is I made connections. I made friends at the gym, and I want to keep going, or I'm going to show up when I don't want to be there, even though I should be there.
Yeah.
Sometimes those relationships that are hard to start are the ones that'll keep you going later on when you don't want to.
Yeah. I don't want to work out, but I want to see my friends. Therefore, I must work out.
Yeah, and most people like leave the gym and they'll work out with stuff and they had a good time with that, but usually what they remember is not the workout or how tough it was or how they necessarily overcame. It was more about the fun they had with their friends or some joke that somebody had in class, or you know what I mean? Like those are the things that you're going to remember. It's the memories that you created with people that you're going to remember and appreciate about the place.
Yeah. Next would be familiar movements with unfamiliar coaching cues on them. So if you've been in the fitness industry for any amount of time, like you know what a squat is, but if you haven't had like formal coaching on like a full air squat, like, yeah, I know what an air squat is, but I've never done it like this before. And this is a lot harder, probably because it's doing it right.
Right. You're not going to be right. So like what you know as, hey, this is an air squat seems right to you because it's hopefully been practiced and it's been repeated, it's been reinforced. But when somebody teaches you something different and new, your first instinct is to say, well, this is wrong. It's not what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And that's not to say what you've been doing is wrong. This is just to show you a better way to do it or an improvement upon what you're currently doing. So if, oftentimes everybody hears the same cue, hey, I want your knees to be a little bit wider. Well, we want to see a little bit more rotation in the femur, right? That'll allow your hips to get to the bottom position easier and make more room in your hip joint. Nobody wants to hear that because that's a mouthful. Unless you're like, hey, give me a thorough anatomical, physiological explanation of why I want my knees wider. We'll just rewind this about 20 seconds, right? But really, like, I just need a quick cue, and that's going to give me a little bit different feedback. And as coaches, we're really trying to direct you towards better movement in every class. Not perfect movement, right? But we just want to get a little bit better. So you can kind of expect that your movements in a coaching setting are going to be constantly evolving. But ideally, they should be trending in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, again, we can create some sort of consistency. Moving on. To the second piece, yeah. So, yeah, consistency in movement, yes, but consistency and momentum and consistency in you continually showing up. And it kind of starts with just having the willingness to start, like Bobby talked about earlier as far as the lingo, like just start. Like you don't have to be in shape to start doing this, and you don't have to be mentally aware of every cue and every movement and every name that it's called. Like just start, and then you'll learn as you go. There are very few situations in life where like you can study and then go do that thing perfectly. Like you're gonna make mistakes. You have to do it to get better at it.
Yeah, that's like, if you use the analogy of taking a test, right? Like you can go and study, take the test, and get a 60% because you got X amount of questions wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of also exposes you to the question, right? So you can come back without studying and then like just think about what questions you answered that you didn't really know about, and then retake the test and score higher, right?
Yeah.
Or that's probably why they have things called pre-tests, right? Where you're gonna take a practice test or whatever it is. But just getting in and doing it is going to give you feedback on what you need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And it's as long as you can keep showing up and create that momentum, you're going to do just fine, and you're going to learn, and you're going to get fitter. Like it's kind of maybe a paradox is the word. The way to get better at being consistent is to be consistent.
Yeah. Well, I think we hear it all the time. People are like, I want to get started, but I don't think I am ...
Yeah.
It's either fit enough, strong enough, my conditioning's like, I'm not flexible. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that like the act of going to class, the act of doing those workouts or getting into that fitness program is going to yield benefits on the things that you think are limiting you.
Yeah.
Right? It's a self-limiting belief. Like,
yeah.
I don't think I'm good enough to do this, therefore I never will.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to just understand that like this is where I'm starting from. I'm not very good at this right now. Changing the words around your head, right? I'm not flexible yet. I'm not strong as I want to be yet. Or I'm not as conditioned as I want to be yet. I'm in the process. I'm not an outsider with the way I say it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're also hearing what you say in your head. If I'm not fit enough to do this, then that's what I believe and that's what I hear myself say.
Yeah.
It's more about changing the way you say things to yourself.
Yeah. Keyword, yet. Once you become a beginner and you've kind of been in the game for a little bit, the next thing could be like your stats. So like if by chance we have a workout that's like 4x7 back squat at 65%. I don't know what my 65% is. Like, okay, that's totally fine. Like, let's do 4x7 climbing, and the last set of 7 should be hard, and the last 2 reps of that 7 are the hardest reps. That's enough of a stimulus, especially if you're a beginner, to make improvements and move on from there. Like, don't get caught up in like, well, I'm not going to go today because I looked at the workout and it's deadlifts at 80%, and I don't know what my 80% is, so I might as well just not go. Oh, okay, hold on. Let's go do the deadlift workout. That way, when it comes time to test the 1RM or whatever we're testing, you can have a 80% when we move forward.
Right.
But for us as a gym, we typically do things for load. That way, there is no prescribed percentage, and you're going off of how you feel that day. If you feel really good, attack it. If you don't, hold back. And for load gives you that freedom.
Yeah, and I think it's too like it's more to say like, hey, we're going to do deadlifts today, whatever that is to you.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that's the heaviest, if you're feeling capable of doing your heaviest deadlift today, then you have the opportunity to do that. If you didn't sleep well last night and you had some other obligations where you're just a little mentally drained and the best output you're going to have is 50%, then you have the opportunity to do deadlifts at 50%, right? And it's a little bit more about like, how do I think about workouts? How do I process the workout itself in my own mind? That actually matters quite a bit. And I think, for the beginner, like, you don't necessarily have that mental toolkit just yet. And a lot of that is just doing workouts and looking at workouts and approaching them and realizing that your approach didn't work that great and starting again tomorrow.
Yeah. Moving forward from there, like recovery and DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. If you're new, you're going to be sore pretty often. If you're intermediate, you're going to be sore pretty often. And if you're advanced, you're going to be pretty sore pretty often. Everyone's kind of feeling the same thing because there's always a certain stimulus with a workout, and no matter where you are skill-wise or experience-wise, you should be aiming to hit that stimulus, and if done correctly, you may be sore. And that's part of the game, and that's part of having musculature around your body and around your bones, is that it's going to break down and rebuild itself to become bigger and stronger. You can't really get better without being sore, but to a degree, that's not our job. Or our purpose isn't to make you very sore that you can't come back the next day. You may be sore, yes, but come back in the next day if you can, get some blood flow around those tissues, move, and you'll probably feel better.
Yeah, I think the way that I always heard this that makes the most sense is that there's good sore and there's bad sore, right? Like good sore is that like I work the muscles and I'm getting feedback from them that you would typically expect.
Yeah.
And there's bad sore where like maybe I moved with really bad form and my joints hurt, right? Or maybe I did way more repetitions than I should have because I haven't been working out consistently and I'm going to need extra recovery. And so that formula for how many workouts you should do, how much recovery you need. As a beginner, you're going to need more time to recover and less time to work out. And then as your body gets better at recovering, you won't get sore as quickly or you won't stay sore as long.
Yeah.
Your body's getting better at that recovery process. Yeah. And at that point, you can pick up your frequency.
Yeah.
Right? You can train more often. But just kind of being mindful that like that is going to be part of the process. And like Mike said, it does not differentiate between the beginner or the advanced.
No. I think most of us, as far as like staff, are pretty sore every day.
Yeah.
That's just part of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's just, we kind of know what we're going into. Like, what did we do today? Overhead carry with L-sits.
Yeah.
And yesterday was some wall volume and gosh, I don't know what else.
I was like a monostructural.
Oh yeah, so we did like
plank,
bike sprint basically in plank.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so going in today, like our core is already going to be like a little bit worked, a little bit sore, but not completely blown out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still going to be able to hold L-sits. My legs are pretty well rocked, but the only work they really have to do is walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Not hard.
And maybe a little bit of the hip flexors and quads for the L-sit. So, I'm not demolishing myself, but I can also modify my intensity, right?
Yeah.
If I want to take it easy on my legs, I'll break up my L-sit sets and do less or slow down. And, I'm either going to make that choice or my body's going to make the choice for me, right?
You want to make the choice.
It's always better if you make the choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's just good practice, right? Especially if you're getting started. Like, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Your body, the soreness, the pain, tightness, those are all ways that your body's communicating with you. And it's your fault if you don't listen, right? But if you listen, like, your body's basically going to tell you to take it slow. And eventually, if you listen to it well enough, consistently enough, it'll tell you when it feels okay to go fast.
Yeah.
Right? If you're doing everything you should be, you're going to come into the gym some days and you're like, man, I feel strong. I feel like I'm going to go lift some weights. I'm excited to do conditioning. My body feels loose. It feels ready to go. I feel energetic. right? Those things eventually come, but they have to be earned.
Yeah, absolutely. The next would be too much too fast. So we're trying to give you the right advice at the right time and not give you too much that you can't digest it and you do nothing with everything we just said. So, I mean, that could range from like what gear you need, what nutrition advice you should have, or like how to get a muscle up if you haven't even done a pull-up yet. Like, nutrition advice is always great, but if you haven't counted your calories before or counted your macros or even know what MyFitnessPal is, like, we're not going to talk about meal timing to a degree. Like, I just want you to count your calories first. Then we'll move on from there. But, and same thing, like, I'm not going to tell you to buy gymnastics grips and wrist straps and a weightlifting belt if we're in, like, our level up and we're doing air squats and, like, box push-ups.
Right. It's just information that you don't need, and that's time that you could have spent doing more repetitions or working on a stretch or having a coach evaluate your squat technique.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
You don't need that information yet. There'll be a day when you get there, but again, that information is earned, right? It's not that you don't have access to it, but like, if you don't need it, you don't need it.
Yeah, and that's also the other problem is that there's a lot of access to a lot of information. Knowing what information you need right now. I'm actually going to skip to that one. That other one doesn't matter, which is finding the right knowledge base to engulf yourself in with, whatever that grammar is. So, like, am I looking, if I'm a beginner, am I looking at a YouTube page that reviews gear, like shoes and knee sleeves and belts and straps, or am I looking at somebody who gives nutrition advice or movement tips or mobility tips? Where should you look? Generally, it's going to be the latter of like mobility, nutrition advice, and movement tips. The things that pertain to you, which you may have to do some sifting through that. But if you're just starting, like, don't worry about shoes or sleeves or anything else. Worry about moving well and putting the right things into your body. Simply put, really.
Well said. That's pretty much it, right, guys? It's the old adage of, like, who you surround yourself is who you're going to be most like, right? So, and I think for a lot of us that like, maybe use social media, like, who you follow on social media and what information keeps being presented to you over and over again is you're going to kind of start to pick up on those things, either say those things, do those things, act that way, whatever, or find those things entertaining or humorous or whatever, right? They're going to kind of help form you, right? If you're just constantly getting that information in. If you're a beginner and you want to get good at this stuff quickly and you want that beginner phase to last for as little time as possible, which really is just like, hey, you want to get fit as quickly as you can in the best way possible, then you're going to find those resources. You're going to talk to coaches or other athletes about who they should follow. And again, like, the right advice at the right time. Like, if you're a beginner, like, is it going to help you a lot to follow advanced Olympic weightlifters or CrossFit level games athletes? Probably not. Like, definitely inspirational to see that, see what good form looks like, see what amazing capacity is, but is that going to give you the biggest return on becoming better and understanding movement? Or should you follow something like Whiteboard Daily that's going to be a breakdown of how to move, right? So there's a lot of different resources out there that are going to help give you some more base information to help you be more equipped when you're in the gym or when you're out of the gym, right? Working on those nutrition or sleep habits.
Yeah. And the last thing is, like, try a few gyms. If you're looking to go in person, as you should, hopefully, try at least 2 to 3 gyms and just see how they do their programming, how they coach their members, and, you know, kind of for your own benefit, what does their facility look like? Like, do you feel comfortable there? Do you feel welcome there? Or is it just kind of like, well, you're just another member or, you know, whatever else? Don't be afraid to try 2 or 3 because You may not like the first one, and that's not the only thing you're stuck with.
Right. And that too, like also look around your neighborhood. Like where do you live, right? Your gym needs to be close. It needs to be convenient. If it's not close to home, it's close to work, right? So there's a reason for you to stop in. You don't want it so far away that you're like, oh, it's going to be cumbersome to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely vet it out. Shop around. If we ever have a member that is moving out of state or they're moving to a different part of the state, we tell them to go to the gym, tell them that you're just visiting, you're there for work or something, and do a drop-in and see how they treat you if they know you're not coming back and you're not a potential member, right? If they treat you well, they take care of most of their members, if they give good instructions, if they make the programming or like a workout fit for the individuals in class, you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
And then tell them that you're going to move there. I was lying to you
Tell them.
because I'm actually just visiting to test you.
I'm buying the gym.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely be an informed consumer and compare gyms. See what those environments are like, because there's a few things that are going to differ in gyms. Like you're going to have different lingo in different gyms, right? It's not always going to be the same. It'll be pretty close. But then the community, the culture, that's going to be different in gym to gym as well. Some gyms may be really large and have a bunch of different cliques and groups that maybe you feel like you don't fit into. Some are going to be more welcoming. Some are going to be maybe standoffish, and so you got to figure out what you like.
Yeah, about it, man. Rewind it, listen to it again, overcome those obstacles.
Cool. You guys have any other questions on things you'd like us to cover, or if there's a topic that would benefit a beginner, or if you're a beginner and you want to hear a topic that you want some more info on or help with, you can email me at bobby@frictiongrandrapids.com or mike@frictiongrandrapids.com, and you can share this podcast or find us on Apple iTunes.
Apple iTunes.
Apple iTunes is a thing. There's two different things. Whatever, guys.
iTunes is within Apple. Apple Podcast. I think that's what it's called.
Right. Buzzsprout, Stitcher, and there's another one?
Google Podcast, maybe?
I don't know.
Anywhere you listen to your podcast, we're probably there.
If you're listening to this right now, you've already found us.
That's right.
All right. Cool. Talk to you guys later. Bye.